Welcome to Friday. It's the 8th day of April 2022. Your Day Weather Podcast brought to you exclusively by Cowboy State Daily, Wyoming's news authority. Check them out at cowboystatedaily.com or on their Facebook page. Well, as we go into the end of the week and the weekend into the next week, there's a lot on the table, a lot to talk about. First of all, we got to talk about this monster windstorm that has just pummeled the region. Wow. Quite the prolonged wind event, numerous blowovers on interstates, whether it's 80, 25, or 70, or even 90. Just been a miserable existence for the central high plains and parts of the eastern Rockies, especially Nebraska, Kansas, South Dakota, Wyoming, parts of Colorado. The winds have just been relentless, but that windstorm is fading. There's still going to be some wind today in some of the central plains, but the winds are going to ease up. So that's good news. We're going to have a fairly decent day today into early tomorrow, but we do have a cold front that's moving into the region late Saturday into Sunday. It's going to be moving into the Pacific Northwest tonight and into Saturday morning. Then late Saturday into Sunday, it's going to move across the northern and central Rockies. Now, initially, it's going to be a little bit of a weather producer. There's going to be some rain and snow shower activity. There's even going to be a little bit of thunderstorm activity in some areas as we get on into the second half of the weekend. Northern areas of Wyoming and southern Montana are going to get a little bit of rain and snow, which they need, and that's good. Now, that cold front is also going to drop temperatures quite a bit. So although today and tomorrow is going to be warmer, Sunday into Monday is going to trend colder. We're still looking at a storm likely next week. Now, there's model uncertainties remaining, but there's also some things lining up. So we have to take a really serious look at this potential storm situation, especially Monday night, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week in the region, and we'll show you why. Livestock interests. I really want to urge stock growers to pay very close attention to this storm. Travelers need to keep an eye on this situation as well. We'll highlight the areas that we're most concerned about. But sometimes April can throw you some really strong winter-like events, and this one has the potential. So with that said, we will post an updated video sometime early Sunday to give you the latest on the information. We're still far enough out that things could change, and the storm may not come together, or it will come together, but we're far enough out where there's some uncertainty, and we'll show you why we have some certainties and some uncertainties with next week's system. Today's satellite photo shows this swirl of clouds. The upper level low is now more towards the middle of the Great Lakes. So this storm in 3 days has moved so slowly. It was in Minnesota. Yesterday it was in Wisconsin. Today it's in Michigan. That is a very slow moving system. So if you want to know why the winds have just been relentless, it's because basically the pattern's been stuck, bringing these very strong winds in from the north and just hammering the region with high winds. But the system is showing signs of weakening. You can see out here in the Pacific the next troublemaker, but there's also a wedge of clear skies right here and high pressure. And that's what we're going to be able to enjoy today and for part of tomorrow. And you can see it really well in the 500 millibar chart, the low over Michigan. It's getting elongated, stretched out. It's finally weakening, but still notice the strong northerly flow that is still going to persist today over the plain states, and that's still going to make the wind. Here's the cold front that comes in late Saturday and Sunday, and this area of low pressure up here is what's going to instigate next week's storm system. But we have this little wedge of high pressure, so the bottom line is enjoy today and enjoy parts of Saturday, because the weather after that is going to change and be not nearly as nice. I wanted to show you where the highest wind gusts will be today. It's going to be right around the low. So you can see these are wind gusts in the 30, 40 mile per hour wind range. But notice we don't have yellows or reds in the wind forecast like we've shown you over the last couple of days. So the highest winds today will be over Iowa, eastern Nebraska, eastern Kansas, then down into parts of the lower Mississippi Delta area. So this windstorm is just really immense in terms of geography and scale. Here comes the next system off the west coast, and the frontal system that is going to be pushing in. This is by Saturday morning, so you can see how quickly it moves in. So with this front coming on through, and then by Sunday, we start to see the front push into the plains, and then another area of right here, low pressure coming into, let's say, Vancouver Island. This area of high pressure is building in the Aleutians, and what some models are showing is that this is going to cause this low to dive into the Great Basin and go into Utah and become what we would say would be a classic Four Corners type situation with the storm, or headed towards or near the Four Corners area as we get into early next week. This front will bring in much cooler air for late Saturday into Sunday. So you're going to notice a pretty steep drop in temperature in the northern and central Rockies and Plain states after some nicer, warmer temperatures today and tomorrow. This is what the first round of precipitation looks like. These are the showers and thunderstorms and areas of snow that we see developing for late Saturday afternoon, overnight Saturday, into Sunday. There's a nice little stretch of moisture right here across northern Wyoming, western South Dakota, far southern Montana. This will bring some snow to the mountains and some wet snow and some areas of rain to the plains where they really need it. That's good. A little swath of Pacific Northwest moisture coming in as well. This patch of moisture right here is going to be rain showers and thunderstorms that will be developing probably during the day Sunday across portions of southern Wyoming, western Nebraska, and northern Colorado. So a typical spring situation, a little bit of rain, snow, and thunder. But this is just the first front. The second system, as you can see, this is the snowfall forecast through Sunday. But now this is where the rubber meets the road in terms of what we're looking at as we head into next week. So what I'm going to do is what I've been doing is I'm showing you the different model solutions. I'm going to show you the European model, the Canadian model, and the U.S. model. This is the European model by Tuesday evening. We've got a closed low forming over southwest Utah. We have another low back up here near Alaska, but we have a little area of high pressure ridge right there and a big ridge developing in the east. Weather forecasting and looking at these maps is a lot like the game of basketball, for those of you who've played basketball, where spacing is important, where you need your players in the right place for the right defense or the right offense. And this is sort of the way it works with these waves and these ridges of high pressure. Spacing is really important for all these things to come together, the distance between the waves and the high pressure ridges. So this is the European model. By Wednesday, the European model then takes the low almost due east and forms a very intense low near Goodland, Kansas, right here. And notice all the closed circles here, these black circles. This is what you call a closed low circulation, where the counterclockwise spin around the low goes from the surface all the way up to jet stream level. And this is where you get the very strong upper level wind flow that is upslope into the front range of the Rockies. This also allows Gulf of Mexico moisture to be brought into the storm, and it also allows Canadian air to come in on the back side of it. So basically, what I'm showing you right here is a classic April snowstorm. According to the European model, this will be developing Tuesday night, overnight Tuesday, and really it could start as early as Tuesday in many areas, but it's really Tuesday night and Wednesday where the storm will come together. Notice high pressure in the east, and we still have this high pressure right here near California. It's small, but right here, this is where the spacing issue becomes a situation where you want to look and see which model is correct. Is the wavelength about the same between systems? Now, the Canadian model is similar, but notice how much further north it is. It's all the way up in the southwest Minnesota, so it's taking a northerly track. The U.S. model, so let's take a look here. This is European, this is the Canadian, this is the European. Now look at the U.S. model. As we go forward, it is all the way for the same time period. It is all the way in southern Canada. So there's a giant difference in the computer modeling between the U.S., the Canadian model, and the U.S. model. The U.S. model is going to bring colder winter weather, but it's not a snowstorm. It's a basic inconvenience. It's colder, it's a little wet, it's windy, and it's going to end up being a storm here for southern Canada and maybe North Dakota. So when we take a look, let's back up here really quick. So when we take a look at what's going on, European, Canadian, and then the U.S. model. The U.S. model, by the way, 9 out of 10 of your phone apps and most of the websites you look at for weather use this model. So this is why it gets a little bit tricky when you start talking about a long-range forecast and a major weather event. You have contradicting data. You're going to have contradicting data and weather forecasts on a lot of your phone forecasts, your website, social media, that type of thing. So what do you do when you have model disagreement like this? What do you do? First of all, consistency is important. Which model's been the most consistent? I'll tell you that here in a minute. you have to know what the known model biases are. There are certain tendencies that the models show that are good and bad. Knowing where the models go good and where the models go bad is important. Does the model make sense with the dynamics and physics of the situation? That's why I talked about that basketball analogy. Where is the spacing? Is the spacing right? Does it make sense? And also the track record. A lot of times season is important. Some models do better than others during certain times of the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. And sometimes, believe it or not, the outlier model is correct. So we have 3 models here I've showed you, 2 which are showing a major winter storm, 1 which is not showing a major winter storm at all. Now you would think, well, go with 2 out of 3, right? Well, sometimes that outlier picks up on something and ends up being the correct model. Models are best 48 hours to 72 hours ahead of the event, despite what you hear about 10-day forecast and 30-day forecast and 10-year forecast. The models are going to do best 2 to 3 days out. That's why we're going to update you on Sunday. So let's, just for argument's sake, go with the European model because that's what we think is going to be the more correct model. The European has been more consistent. The European has a better track record. And the European is making more sense with its spacing of waves, troughs, and ridges across the Gulf of Alaska, Canada, and the lower 48 states. So if this model ends up being somewhat correct, now again, what I'm showing you here is for display purposes only, trying to show you what may happen, but don't take it verbatim, meaning this is to show you where the area of most concern is. What it really ends up happening could shift north, south, east, or west a little bit. So if the European ends up being correct, we have a heavy swath of precipitation that will form over the Dakotas, just about all of central eastern Wyoming, northeastern Colorado, and a good portion of Nebraska, then into the upper Midwest. This right here is anywhere from 1 to 2.5 to nearly 3 inches of water equivalent, which it would be great news. We desperately need the moisture in these areas, and this would be a godsend in terms of spring precipitation. But it's going to be cold enough that it's going to be mostly snow, as the ability to tap into some very cold Canadian air with this system is pretty good. Then look at the wind gust. Yes, here comes the wind again. If that low develops as strongly as we think it could, on the back side of the system, we have winds that could be 60, 70 miles an hour or more on the back side of the storm, or at least potentially gusting in that range. So what we have to do is if the European model is correct, we have a blizzard situation as we get on into Tuesday and Wednesday. Again, we have question marks. This is why we're going to update you on Sunday. Trend is your friend in long-range weather forecasting. But you can see what we just showed you. Now here's temperature. See all that purple? These are 30 to 40 degree below normal temperatures by Wednesday afternoon. So you can surmise that this is going to be a situation. If we see that heavy moisture, we get the snow like this, you put the wind together, you put the cold together, it's a nasty situation. That's why we're concerned about livestock and travel conditions Tuesday and Wednesday. But there's just enough disagreement in the modeling that we'll update you on Sunday, so we've got time to prepare and to adjust the forecast. Have yourself a good week.